Hi everyone, it's Professor Kishbaugh. Today we're going to talk about decision making. Last week we talked about supervisory management and the different levels of management. Remember, I showed you the tower with the three different levels of management. And we talked about leadership and we talked about managers and what they need to do when they lead people in their organization. Today we're going to talk about decision making, something we all do every day. You get up, you choose what you're going to wear, you decide where you're going to go, you decide what you're going to do. Everything you do all day long is based on a decision that you're making. So managers, it's the same thing. The difference with a manager is that the decisions that they're making affect their team. So they have to be very cautious and make sure that they have all of the information they need before they make that decision. It's nothing for us to decide what we're going to wear. We look in our closet, we look in our dresser, we're going to wear that. It's a hot day today, let's wear shorts. Let's go see our friends. We haven't seen this friend for a while. Let's go to school. Let's do the things that we need to do. Decisions that we make are a lot easier than the decisions that a supervisory manager has to make because they are in charge of a group of people who are relying on them. So we'd like to say, get the info. I'm the boss, need the info. And basically that's how it goes. We need information. We need to know if we choose this direction, here's what we think will happen. If we choose this direction, here's what we think is going to happen. Those are called alternatives. So we need to know or at least have an idea of what our alternatives are before we can make a good decision. And not all decisions are going to be positive. Some decisions are going to require people to make changes, which is very difficult. And some decisions are going to make people very happy. So there's a lot going on in the world today. Managers right now, after all of this COVID disease moves on and we move into a different area, decisions are going to have to be made on what comes next. So a really good supervisory manager is going to go get the information, or we call it data, and they're going to choose the best alternative. And we'll talk more about that. So let's move forward. So basically, decision making is very important. It's part of planning, okay? We need to take a look at the objectives that are available to us, okay? Are we looking at policies that we have to put together? What are the rules that we need to put forward? Under organizing, it's delegating authority. And pretty much that just means who are we going to give the power to take that decision and move forward with it. And then the grouping of duties and responsibilities, that's going to be once we make our decision, who is going to be responsible for making sure that everyone is following the right role. Okay? So under staffing, it could be employee selection, it could be employee placement. Who are we looking for? Remember, the supervisory management is probably going to be in charge of hiring people. So what are they looking for? What type of employee are they interested in? How are they going to train employees? Okay? Performance appraisal. A performance appraisal is simply something that we look when we're looking at people to either give them a raise or we want to promote them. We will put together a type of document that will help us choose how we're going to measure someone's performance. How well are you doing on the job? And that's what a performance appraisal is. Compensation. Are we going to give raises? Are we going to give this person a bonus? Okay? And then the health and safety of our employees. The health and safety is very important. So the decisions that a supervisory manager makes really affects the health and safety of our workplace. And then leading. Leading, we're talking about now communication and motivation. And we'll talk more about that as we move on to the course. And then controlling, that's planned performance with actual performance. What are we expecting from you, and what have you accomplished? Okay? Two completely different things. So the reason why supervisors need to make more decisions, they operate on a production-oriented, day-to-day, person-to-person basis. Like us making our decision on what we're going to wear or where we're going to go or what we're going to do that day, supervisors also have to make these decisions on a day-to-day business. Remember, they are in charge of a group of people, but they also answer to the big boss, to the CEO. We're looking for direction, assistance, guidance, okay? And we spend more time socializing with others to get the information that we need as supervisors to make better decisions. Decision making is hard, and most managers are really frightened of making decisions because they don't want to be wrong and they don't want to offend people. Unfortunately, not all of our decisions are going to make everybody feel comfortable. Sometimes we have to make a decision in business that might hurt others. It'll help some, but it could hurt others. And we'll talk more about that. The lower level of management, that's the greater span of management, which basically means we are in charge of a greater group of people who make up a greater part of the organization. So we better have our info and our data to make that decision because we're affecting a large group of people. So the span of management, this is the number of immediate employees. This is the number of employees that are immediately direct to me. They report to me as the supervisor. I need to make sure that I'm making decisions that not only, like I said, have the CEO and the big boss in mind, but also have my greatest interests for my people that I'm supervising. And we call those folks subordinates. So the people that I'm supervising are my subordinates. And I am in charge of leading my subordinates and making decisions that are going to increase production. Okay? You consider and select a course of action from among alternatives to produce a desired result. That is the definition of decision making. Looking at a group of alternatives and then pulling the alternative that you think is going to have the greatest effect on the greatest number of people. Okay? The decision may not be needed. It may involve the future. There's a conscious process involved in this, which means we have to take a look at how it's going to affect everyone in our group. And it can involve more than one alternative solution. Okay? So if you look at this chart, I like this chart. It gives you an idea. Okay? We have to make a decision. So we're going to lay out, and in this case, there's just 4 alternatives, A, B, C, and D. And then we'll choose from among those alternatives. Okay? For example, if you're getting ready to hire people and you have to put together a list of things you're looking for from someone you'd like to hire, you will rank the things that are most important to you. It could be tardiness, not showing up late for work. It could be skills. We want to hire the people with the best skills. It could be that we want to hire somebody with the best education, or it could be that we want to hire somebody who knows our organization. So the 4 alternatives, we would choose from there and decide which one of those are the most important to us. And that's how we'll make our decision to hire someone. And that's just a very, 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 very basic. So how decision making and problem solving relate? We all have learned a little bit about problem solving. We all learn the scientific method when we're in school. And that's your problem, your solution, you make your hypothesis, and then you have your final say. Did I meet my goal? Did I meet my decision, reach my decision? We've all done that before. That's the scientific method. So the opportunity, then a chance for development, and then the problem could be existing unsatisfactory situation causing anxiety. Okay, so that's the problem. The problem is our employees have a lot of anxiety. We are seeing a lot of that right now with what's going on in the world today. There's a lot of stress and anxiety and people wondering if they're going to lose their job, if they're going to get their hours cut, or if they're going to be giving another job. Okay? So the supervisors will identify the problem. Okay? Then they'll analyze a solution, a situation, and then they'll solve the problem, and then they'll recognize the opportunities that come as a result of that. So here's the steps, and take a look at this chart. So this is basically, again, step 1, define the idea or problem that the supervisor needs to act on. Okay? And then in step 2 will be develop the alternatives. What are some alternatives? Okay? Collect and interpret and evaluate the relevant information about each alternative. Go get that data, go get the information, get everything you need to know for each alternative, okay? And then you're going to select your alternative, you'll implement the decision, and then you'll follow up. The biggest thing in management today that a lot of supervisory managers do not do is follow up. That is probably the most important part of decision making, is to follow up. Get feedback. There's a reason why each one of these lines link to each other, because they all come back to providing feedback. So once you follow up, then you go back and you get feedback from your subordinates, and that'll help you for the next time that you make a decision. Decision making is not easy. Decision making requires a lot of data. You don't just make a decision when you're a manager lightly. You go out and at least do some research based on the alternatives, and then you're going to make the best decision from that. Okay? The synergy, I'm sure you've heard the word synergy before. It's when the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. Okay? We use that a lot in the work world. We've got synergy. That's where everybody comes together, and everybody's data and everybody's information and everybody's creativity comes together to allow us then to make better decisions. Okay? Creativity, that's the process of making something unique. So when we're a supervisor, we really, before we even make a decision, we probably should go and talk to some of our subordinates, some of the folks that we're working for, and maybe interview some of our employees and see exactly where they are and what they're feeling. So if we're talking about reducing stress, maybe we go and we ask our employees, what does stress you out on a daily basis? And then we can take all that data and information, and it will help us make a decision. A good example is the company IKEA, the one that makes all the furniture that you put together, okay, IKEA. They went ahead and they listened to employees tell them that having a baby and being on maternity leave was a stress for the family. So IKEA decided to give more maternity leave, and also gave maternity and paternity leave to parents who were adopting a child. So whether you were having a baby or adopting a baby, IKEA has given, I think it's up to 12 to 14 weeks paid time off. So that takes the stress off the family. They listen to their employees, okay? So creativity, that's where the right hemisphere functions are frequent catalyst for solution alternatives. Talk to the people in your group who are creative, who are naturally able to take a look at different angles. Not all of us are very creative. I'm not very creative. I've got to have the facts. I can't make a decision until I have all the facts. I'm not a very creative thinker. So I'll go out and I'll ask people, what do you feel about this? And how do you feel about that? One of the tools that we use as supervisors is called brainstorming. And this is basically freely thinking ideas. That's people speaking out. We allow our employees to talk about the things that are bothering them, the things that are going on in their lives. And then we let them then generate some ideas, free thinking. Just everybody, talk at once, write something down, whatever, brainstorming. Let's get all of that information into one pile, and then we can start pulling out the things that we need. So guidelines for participating, okay, it's quantity over quality. We want lots of alternatives, okay? Refrain from judging people. This is not an instance where you start judging people's ideas. We want free flow. Think of ideas, okay? Avoid censoring. That just means that don't keep people locked in. If it's not just profanity, but it's don't censor someone maybe from finding something or shut someone down based on maybe your judgments, okay? And feel free to offer variants and build on one another's ideas. So feel free to almost do like a mind mapping where you're putting information and people are just doing tree branches. It's like you've seen a tree branch and the tree branches off, and all these little things that we see on the edge of the branches, the leaves, can be alternative solutions as well. Okay? So it's particularly useful when you want to define your problem, when you need to redefine new problems, determine possible cause for a problem, and listing these possible actions for implementing the chosen solution, your alternatives. It's really important that before you make that decision as a supervisor, that you have at least 3 to 4 alternatives so you can take a look at each alternative and see which one you think will be the path to the greatest decision. Okay? So now, here's your turn. This is your work for this week. I'd like you to think of a decision that you had to make recently. Did you have to decide to buy a car? Maybe that's a really big one. Maybe it's just, what did you decide what to wear? Did you decide what homework you were going to do first? Did you decide where you were going to go that day? Okay, think about that. Did you go through any kind of process? Have you ever used brainstorming? Okay, and then how did you make your decision? So that's the first part. Okay, and then the second part is to think of this process. We mentioned a process in our lecture 1, okay, and I want you to think of something that you do every day, whether it's brushing your teeth or getting ready for school or going out and doing some yard work, or maybe you like to boat, or maybe you like to just go visit your friends. Think of something you do every day, and then I want you to brainstorm. Okay, brainstorm, and that's basically just writing ideas. Just write them down, okay, on how you could come up with an easier process. Can you make that process easier? Okay, so think of something you do every day. Putting on your shorts, brushing your teeth, doing some homework, anything that you can think of. Maybe it's helping your friends or helping your parents. What can you do to make that easier? Okay, and brainstorm ideas. And I want you to just write them down. You can use a paper, you could type it on the computer, and then you're going to send that back to me. Think of a process, something that you do every day, and I want you to brainstorm just by giving me ideas and alternatives of how you can make that process easier. Is there something that you can do that will make that easier for you? Imagine that you're the supervisor and you're going to make that process easier for your employees. Okay? So that's what I'd like you to do. And then you can upload that. You can take a picture if you prefer paper. You want to draw it out on a piece of paper, then you can take a picture and upload the picture, or you can just type in your ideas and send those to me. Thank you very much, and I'll check in next week.